So when something happens from your perspective, like your immediate reaction is like, oh, this is just like what I saw on the NWA movie.
What's going on, everyone? It's the MEC podcast, episode 8. 8 is my favorite number, so this is going to be a good one, especially given the fact that Dame and I are pretending like we're not in the exact same building. We're just in separate rooms.
We're currently on the MEC tour, so we have to make it work. And as much as we've been preaching consistency to everybody on the MEC tour, we have to be an example of that. So even though we're on the road, we have to make sure that the MEC podcast continues.
And we're on tour, MECtour.com, emphasizing the human element in the music business, especially with regards to marketing and networking. And it's funny because as we're going out there telling people to be human, respect one another as humans in the music business, because I think a lot of people look at the music business as some big machine and not just as what it is, which is a bunch of people, working on music sometimes together. We're seeing some really and experiencing some really crazy examples of terrible networking and disrespectful interactions. Matter of fact, I just saw, and this ties everything together on this podcast, because the second topic I want to talk about is my controversial tweet that I posted and then reposted on our Instagram, which caused a lot of reactions, strong reactions. But TJ, the legendary TJ from TJ's DJs, reposted that, and on it some guy was spamming, of course, and TJ has this whole music review system, so he told the guy politely to submit to his music review sessions, and the guy was really rude to him, basically dismissed him and said, "I'm just trying to get your followers to listen to me, dude, just leave me alone." And then some other people stepped in and kind of said, "Hey, that's kind of rude." He cussed them out too. So seeing examples of that, it goes to show me that people are setting themselves up for failure by not even understanding that the music business consists of humans who deserve respect and who share the experiences with other people. And additionally, this is public. Social media is real. Social media is humans too, and we all see it. So we had a couple crazy. I want to share two. Maybe Dame, you can share the second one, but one of them was a positive experience. It was a positive networking story, and it was from Lo-Fi, and I want to interview him about this. I'm going to make that happen. But the brand new Lil TJ single, which is Lane Switch, just came out. He found out that one of his midis was used in that track, and so obviously that's a copyright infringement case. Some people would say go ahead and sue him, ran on social media about it. He just reached out and said, "Hey, that's my MIDI. Let's work this out." And I think he said within a day they had worked it out, and now he's collaborating with the producers behind that record, and already, I think within a week, they already have 2 more records in the works, big ones too. That's a great example of networking. You don't have to be super aggressive, even if somebody infringes on your copyright or violates you in some other way. It could just be a mistake or an oversight on their part. There's no reason to come in, kicking the door down, guns blazing, cussing people out, potentially burning bridges, even if the other person is in the wrong. People make mistakes. And so there was firsthand, we experienced this after an unfortunate situation in Atlanta. You want to talk about that, Dame?
Yeah, but before that, I mean, the situation with Lo-Fi, I think that, there's this cloud of skepticism that just hovers around the music industry. It has everybody on edge, right? We think that everybody is just out to do negative things. Everybody is out to harm you. So when something happens from your perspective, like your immediate reaction is like, oh, this is just like what I saw on the NWA movie, or this is just like the TLC story. Like, there's this cloud of skepticism. So we have like this immediate like defense mechanism that wants to like go on the offense because you feel like you've been wronged in the most worst way. And it's just the music industry rearing its demonic head again. When that's really not the case. Like you mentioned, sometimes people just forget things. There's oversight issues, so you never want to respond with just a heavy hand right away, or you could burn a lot of bridges. So we had this experience in Atlanta with the first stop of the MEC tour. The venue wasn't open right away. And actually, Payne and I were probably the most frustrated because it was embarrassing as we had a bunch of people congregating outside. We didn't have answers of when the door would be open. So it was a frustrating experience, probably for us the most. But we felt, the impatience from people, and I was walking around trying to talk to people, letting them know the information as soon as I got new information. And I offered people refunds if they, couldn't stay until we got the door open. So I initiated that conversation. So some young ladies were there, and they said, yeah, we're probably going to have to get a refund. We can't stay. We have some clients that we need to tend to. Okay, great. So they left. However, a day later, I get an email from them following up. They're saying, hey, we're at the event. We need a refund. And if we don't get a refund right away, we're going to take legal action. So it just kind of like legal action for for some $30-$40 tickets. And I told you that I would give you a refund. It's been one day. This is your first time reaching out to me after the event, and you're already threatening legal action. That's crazy to me. So yeah, I was just taken aback by that. And you can just imagine that if somebody is threatening legal action for $30 tickets, then she probably mismanages a lot of things. And if she does have clients, I feel bad for her clients because, she's going about, interacting with people in a very aggressive way that's probably not going to help her build a lot of relationships in the future.
And look, I don't know if you had that experience early on or you were just a lot smarter than me. I definitely, as an artist, came into the game scared of the music business and wary of all of the exploitation and thefts that I thought was rampant. And, bad things do happen in the game. They really do. And a couple times when it did happen to me, I overreacted and probably burned those bridges. I admit to that. There are a million and one ways to get your way without burning a bridge, without reacting in a negative or over aggressive way. It's not bad to be aggressive and defend yourself when you need to, but to me that's like a last resort. It shouldn't be a first course of action. Right. Especially not when you're already in contact with the person, or you can be in contact with the person. Always just reach out to people. You know what I mean? I reach out to people all the time. I get copyright claims against my videos probably 5 to 10 times a week. Some of the people doing that have just stolen my beats off of YouTube. And all I do is reach out to them, and instead of threatening legal action, I say, look, I understand you probably just forgot to register to license this beat. Now you're selling it. Since it's already out, let's work this out so that I don't have to file a claim. Because that can be bad. I don't want to do that to a person. And 9 out of 10 times they respond right away, and we figure it out, and it works out. It's not necessary to go in disrespecting people just because they did something that was wrong. Don't personalize it. I think wasn't that a video that Kato posted to the MEC with Ludacris talking about don't take anything personal in this game? Great advice.
Yeah. I did have one story, like when we started Funk Volume, we were participating in a lot of local shows. We were trying to see, we're basically trying to do everything and anything we could do to get exposure. And there was this platform called Hood Hype that was doing like this online contest. And I don't even remember what the prize was, but we submitted our song and then we were getting our fans to vote. And I felt like the voting mechanism was messed up. And I didn't jump out the window and do something super out of pocket, but like I did accuse them of having their voting system like messed up. And this wasn't a big contest or anything like that, but I felt so bad that I reacted in that way. I reached out like 3 years later and just apologized to them, once we had a lot of success. and they continued their platform. You know, it eventually fizzled off, but I kept the relationship with the person that ran that platform. And when I realized that I had overreacted early in our career, I reached back out to him and I apologized. And I don't even know if he remembered, but he appreciated me reaching back out to him to apologize. You know, but I didn't do anything too crazy. I didn't threaten legal action or anything like that. But I did accuse them of their like rigging their voting system. So I felt I was embarrassed by it. You know, so I reached out to apologize.
I just realized you get a break from me commenting on the small door behind you because you're in a different place.
I'm glad that's what you thought about after we're talking about networking. But yeah, no small door behind me.
We've just been talking about networking a lot, and I feel sorry for anybody who missed the Philadelphia MEC event because we had Mike Trampy, we had Brianna DeMeo from Taste Creators, but Mike Trampy had a couple drinks. He was all in this conversation, all in. It was informative as it was entertaining.
Yeah,
so shout out to
Philly was dope. DC was dope. Even Atlanta ended up dope, even though we had that 2-hour delay. I think that the feedback we're getting from this tour is why we decided to do it in the first place, and what encourages us and motivates us to continue to keep this moving. We'll definitely hit more cities in the future. We'll probably hit the Midwest after the winter and keep things going throughout 2020. So it's definitely been a positive experience. I've enjoyed it.
So let's open a can of worms then, because the original example that started this conversation was the TJ's DJ's Instagram repost of our Instagram post, which was just a repost of my tweet. And my tweet had to do with this notion that you shouldn't quit a job to pursue music because it's too much of a risk. My point was that life is full of risks, and if you're looking at a music career as a risk, you might be underestimating yourself. Because going to school, spending all that time and money to get a degree, to enter into some kind of field, that's also a risk. It doesn't make you financially stable. Same with music. Investing in music doesn't make you financially stable. And people forget that training for a job or going to school, that's you foregoing making money. You're investing your time and your energy with the idea that in the future you're going to get a job. And you know, some careers are less secure than others once you get them, but the average person who wants to make music for a living probably isn't a doctor or someone with a PhD or a CEO of a Fortune 500 company. Those are stable jobs. The rest of us could get fired or laid off at any time. I mean, it happened to you, Damon. You have an MBA.
Yeah, but I kind of disagree with your post, and that's why this is going to be an interesting discussion, because to me it makes it seem like risk is binary. It's either risk or no risk, right? So there's levels of risk. You know, I'm actually a fan or a supporter of young people going to school, at least until they figure out exactly what they want. Like once you figure out exactly what you want to do, if that doesn't require school, then don't go to school. But to me, in order to open up the most doors possible while you're still trying to figure things out and have a great experience and meet a lot of cool people, is to go to school, because I think school opens the most doors until you figure out exactly what you want to do. So I'm a supporter of school, but I understand that there's other routes. You don't have to go to school. And you know, I did go to school. I went to a lot of school. I went to Berkeley. I got my degree in business, and then I went back and got my MBA. And yeah, I got laid off, but like I feel like with my education and my experience, like there's a bottom floor to what I can't go below. Like even if music stuff doesn't work out for me, yeah, it's a risk to be in music and be an entrepreneur in general, but there's like a minimum that I'll probably never fall below because I have, you know, education and experience. So yeah, there's risk, but it's not as much as somebody that just out of high school starts and, you know, jumps into music.
No, that's true. The average person doesn't have an MBA though. My point is that there's instability at virtually every job. I mean, I think there's instability anywhere because an industry can change. And if you're viewing your job as a source of stability and security, that's a risk because your job is a single source of income. And if that single source of income is what you depend on 100%, and somehow that source of income is reduced or lost, then you're in trouble.
Yeah, but again, it's levels to risk, so it's not all the same. Like my dad used to work, or still works for the city. That's a more stable job because it's funded by the city than you working under like an entrepreneur. So there's varying degrees of risk and stability to every job. Being an entrepreneur in any field, like it's going to be risky to a certain point. Like you can have stability as an entrepreneur. It just depends on how you build your business, what industry you're in, how you position yourself. Like it's hard to blanket, things, but music comes with a lot of risk. And I would encourage people. I know a lot of people are like, don't have a plan B because you don't go all out for your plan A. I don't necessarily agree with that either. But there's just varying degrees of risk and stability to every job. But I think music, if you're not doing anything else, there's a lot of risk in music, just like there's a lot of risk in opening up a restaurant. So it's just different.
Yeah, there's absolutely a risk, and I don't think it's a binary. I think I'm actually agreeing with you that there isn't a binary, but people tend to say music is the risk. Pursuing your art, that's the risk. Getting a stable job is not the risk. And in my experience, I've seen people with stable jobs, people who work decades of their life at a job and have risen in the ranks, and then suddenly something happens, the technology changes. We don't control the technology as employees. There are advances in the field, outsourcing comes into play. I mean, that's capitalism. You know what I mean? The people you're working for can cut you off at any moment. And I've seen it happen, and you hate to see it happen. You hate to see someone who's 3 years away from retirement and they get laid off or they get cut from their job. And we've kind of romanticized this idea of getting a job because of that stability. But when it does happen, and I'm not saying it's going to happen to everybody, it's not going to happen to everybody. But when it does happen, it's absolutely devastating. And for me, I would rather not get blindsided. But I'm already in music. I've been doing this for 12 years, and I went to school. So I don't think going to school is a bad thing. I don't think you should just quit your job and make music. I think you should learn as much as possible about your options. But if you love music and that's something you really want to do, and this notion that it's such a big risk compared to everything else on the planet, and you want to choose stability over trying something out, I think you're making a mistake.
Yeah, I think the issue with the post is, again, like a lot of people just received it the same way I read it initially. It was just like, it's getting a job at Coca-Cola is just as risky as music, so you might as well pursue music. And it's not really. The risk is.
I had a cousin who was funny because I had a cousin who was laid off from Coca-Cola, and that was devastating.
But you're still, I mean, if you're gonna say that, again, and you can pursue music in a less risky way. I feel like I did that, like even though I didn't intend to get into music, I got laid off. I could have gone back into the working world. It wasn't into the corporate world. It wasn't like I couldn't get a job, but I had money saved up. So saving up money lessens the risk of, you being homeless. Even though I didn't have a network within music, I had a pretty solid network. I knew that with any business that I started, if I failed, I would always have like a good support system, and I would have a couch to sleep on, right? So I didn't have any kids, so that's less of a risk. That lowers the risk of, just full on disaster. So you can pursue music in a less risky way. I would encourage artists to have a job to support their music career and to keep that job until your music career is paying your bills, and then you can jump all in. because to be honest with you, there's really not gonna be that much stuff to do where you couldn't have a job as well in the beginning if you push yourself.
Yeah.
Um,
But
so
then people start using that as an excuse to, I got a job, I can't do all this.
well, that's exactly what it is, an excuse. Like, if you got to work, you have even if you had a regular 9 to 5, there are still a lot of hours left in your week for you to be able to be productive in music. You just have to go harder. That's what it is. And if you have an excuse, then you need to stop making them.
But let's be honest, the culture that we were all brought up in centers around having a job and having your weekends off and enjoying your leisure time. That's not really consistent with the life and the requirements of an entrepreneur.
Yeah, and I think people understand that now. I mean, people understand that being an entrepreneur or pursuing music doesn't necessarily fit into the confines of that system, or you should understand that by now. So, if you value your quality time that high, then music may not be for you. Because I think it's going to take a lot of heavy lifting in the beginning to really get to a point where you can, really just decide to scale things back and maybe only rap on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, or, you can get to that point, but, there's a lot of heavy lifting in the beginning.
What do you think about people who just kind of straddle the line indefinitely?
That and are successful doing so, like they have a job and they just use music to supplement their income they're getting from their job.
I actually don't see that happening very often. I think it's a lot less common because I think the human instinct is just to go with what feels the most secure and invest the most time and energy and resources into that. I personally don't see 50-50 at a job and then 50-50 in a creative arts career that's completely unrelated to the job as being all that plausible for a person. Not a true 50-50 split.
Yeah. I mean, I see some, especially like managers, right? If you're not managing, since you're only getting 20% of, what your artists are bringing in, your artists aren't making a decent amount of money. Like, you're going to have a regular job. And I've come across some artists too that have jobs. Well, I know a lot of artists that have jobs. Actually, there's a lot of artists because it's a necessity, like you have to pay your bills, so you have to have the income coming in from somewhere until your music income can support you. So, it's tough. Like, it's just tough. Like, there's no one way to pursue music. Like, I've seen people that have jumped all in and have been, successful. I've seen more people jump all in and not be successful. But I've seen, other people take more calculated risks and pursue it in a more methodical way. And to be honest, I've probably seen those people be more successful than people that are just like, I got to go all in and don't really have a plan or a strategy, no money saved up, and it doesn't work out.
Yeah, I think you have to know yourself. For me, I would have to take a calculated risk, and I did. I slowly phased out the jobs that I had. I mean, some of it I didn't have a choice, but I think some people have these personalities where, and maybe these are just people who aren't built for the music industry, who need. Well, some of them are. I don't know. It's hard to say. You're the one who always says not everyone's meant for this, not everyone's built for this, not everyone can handle it, because it is stressful, and if you are seeing it as a balancing act, that's difficult. And if you're seeing it as your sole source of income, that's also difficult, and that's really stressful. I know people who go back and forth. They quit their job and try to pursue music, but rather than pursuing music, they just spend that time freaking out because they're financially unstable, and they eventually go back to a job, and they're miserable at their job, and they quit music again, and nothing. It's just this constant push and pull, and that doesn't work. Some people I know have to put themselves in positions of discomfort in order for that grind to really kick in. So like you said, there's no one way. I think that what's curious to me is that my tweet is vague, very vague, and it's open to interpretation. And a lot of people were interpreting it as me saying, if you don't quit your job right now with no plan and no calculated risk, just do it, then you're never going to make it, or I'm not going to respect you, or whatever. So a lot of people reacted negatively to that. And absolutely, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not telling anybody to quit their job. If you don't want to quit your job, if you're not ready to do that, if you don't love music enough to commit, and if you don't have some kind of plan that you're comfortable with, don't do it. And there's no shame in having a job, absolutely not. But I think a lot of people are sensitive about that because they're dealing with this kind of internal battle in their head. They love music. They don't know how much they love music. They don't necessarily see it as a viable career option for themselves. And it's stressful. It's stressful to have that internal battle in your head all the time. And a lot of people I know have that in their head all the time. My thing is, you want to minimize risks, but you also want to minimize regrets. And I think that's a really difficult balance to achieve, because I know a lot of people my age who, if they had changed some of their habits 15 years ago, they'd either have a supplementary income from music or they'd be all in. And they're not, because they just didn't want to take those steps because they were fighting with their own urges in their heads.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I would definitely, I'm a more structured person. So, I know a lot of people like to jump into things with their head down and just say, hey, I'm going to work as hard as I can and hopefully eventually bust through the wall. But, I want to know like how thick the wall is. I want to know like everything about, I want to know as much as possible. So everybody's different. I would just encourage people to minimize the risk. I would definitely get a job along the way. You're going to have to pay your bills, hopefully get a job within the music industry so that it's, relevant to what you're doing. The relationships that you're building possibly can help you out in your personal career. And the people that you're working with can maybe become a part of the team at some point or something like that. So that's just me. So I understand why people reacted the way they did to the tweet. And yeah, I get it.
Well, now we know whose side Dan is on. I think by the time this podcast is live, we will have finished the entire tour.
Yes.
Yeah. What are some things that really stood out to you about this tour? Just talking to people, any conversations, any topics, any questions?
What I've just been super. What's been dope is just how grateful people have been to us coming out and sharing information, bringing people together. Especially in the cities where they don't get that many music events. So we're in Philly right now. It wasn't one of our bigger events, but there's just a lot of gratitude. So we, that fuels us, to continue to do what we're doing, knowing that we're having, some kind of impact, should you decide to pursue music or not in the future. It's a very tough career. It isn't for everybody. Being an entrepreneur isn't for everybody. So we just want to get as much information to people as possible so that they can make the best decision for themselves.
And obviously, you don't have to go on MECtour.com, or if we don't make it to your city, you don't have to attend our tour stops to participate in these conversations and get these resources from us. Music Entrepreneur Club, we meet a couple times a week. This is what we do all the time. And as you're going through these struggles and having these questions, we're holding a live session, probably discussing the topic that you have questions about. And we do that a couple times a week. MusicEntrepreneurClub.com. It's like as cheap as a Netflix subscription, but it actually helps you build your career and make some money. Netflix doesn't do that. It's fun.
Nah, I would encourage people to join our live sessions, man. We're having dope discussions every week. Tune in from wherever you are. Super easy, super cheap, and hopefully adding a lot of value to what you have going on. So musicentrepreneurclub.com. And then we'll continue the MEC tour next year as well. So we definitely plan on hitting the Midwest. And then after that, we'll see. Figure it out.
So follow us on social media at Music Entrepreneur Club on Twitter. Catch all of the controversial conversations and exchanges that we have. And we also post videos that I think are helpful. All of the podcast links and the join links are in our bio as well. Otherwise, just hit musicentrepreneurclub.com. We hope to see you there. Once again, episode 8, DJ Payne 1. He's Dame Ritter. We're out. Peace.
Peace.